The moon hung high in the night sky, its silver light casting an eerie glow over the sprawling ruins of the forgotten city. Amid the crumbling stone and twisted alien flora, a lone figure moved cautiously, his every step a careful whisper against the dry earth. The man's breath came in short, steady bursts, his heart pounding as the silence of the deserted world pressed in from all sides. He had been searching for hours, his every instinct screaming that something or someone was out of place. His eyes darted nervously over the jagged landscape, scanning for the object of his search. And then, at last, he saw it. Nestled in the center of a vast, open courtyard was a figure lying prone on an altar of broken stone, surrounded by a haze of strange, shimmering energy. The faint, almost imperceptible hum of ancient technology buzzed in the air, as though the ruins themselves were alive with secrets long buried. The figure, draped in tattered but ornate armor, appeared to be sleeping, or perhaps, more accurately, in some kind of suspended animation. Her posture was relaxed, almost peaceful. But something about the sight of her stirred an unsettling chill in his chest. The warrior was beautiful in an unsettling way. Her skin, a shimmering shade of midnight blue, seemed to shift in the light as if she were made of liquid. Her features, though alien, were sharp and symmetrical, with eyes that seemed to shimmer even in her slumber. He had heard the stories, of course, the legends told in hushed voices of the alien warriors who once ruled this forsaken planet. Tall, fierce, and deadly, they were said to be the last remnants of a civilization wiped out by their own creations, leaving only tales of terror in their wake. The man took a hesitant step forward, his boots crunching on the brittle stone. He didn't know what had drawn him to her, or why he felt this inexplicable urge to approach. All he knew was that his mission here was far from over, and the answers he sought might lie in the depths of her silence. He had been following the signal for days now, an encrypted transmission that had somehow managed to survive the centuries of isolation. The coordinates had led him here, to this forsaken planet at the edge of the galaxy, where the ruins of an ancient empire stood as a testament to its once great power. But it was the faint message that had caught his attention, an almost nonsensical phrase: "Find the sleeping warrior," or "risk everything." What it meant, he had no idea. But now, standing in the shadow of her unmoving form, the weight of those words pressed heavily on his mind. His gaze flickered back to her face. The strange, hypnotic glow of her skin seemed to pulse in time with the faint hum of the technology around her. The air was thick with the promise of something powerful, something dangerous. He could feel it in his bones. His mind raced, wondering what she was doing here, what had caused her to fall into this strange slumber. Was she a prisoner of the alien forces that had once ruled this place? Or had she been a guardian, waiting centuries for someone to stumble upon this long-forgotten tomb? The man's hand reached out, trembling slightly. He should turn back, he knew. There was a reason why these ruins had been abandoned. The local legends had warned against disturbing the resting warriors of this dead civilization. They were creatures of vengeance, they said. Cold, merciless, and driven by ancient instincts that had been woven into their very essence. But something within him refused to retreat. The pull of curiosity, of a need for answers, was too strong. His fingers brushed against the smooth surface of her armor, cool to the touch and unnervingly soft, despite its alien composition. The sensation made his stomach churn, but he pressed on. And then, without warning, the warrior's lips parted. The air around him seemed to crackle, the hum of energy growing louder, sharper. His hand jerked back, but it was too late. Her eyes, which had been shut in death-like slumber, snapped open, glowing a bright, fierce green. The man froze. His heart skipped a beat. Her gaze locked onto his, and for a moment, he saw only the burning fury within them, a fury that had lain dormant for eons. Her breath was shallow, but every fiber of her being screamed with the power of an ancient predator who had been awakened from a long, unnatural sleep. In an instant, the air between them seemed to shift. The ground trembled beneath his feet, as if the earth itself was reacting to her presence. He backed away instinctively, his mind scrambling for a way out, but her eyes never left his. Her lips curled into a smirk, cold, dangerous, and knowing. She stood slowly, towering over him with a grace that betrayed the deadly strength beneath her lithe frame. The armor that had once appeared ornate now looked like the terrifying shell of some insect. Designed for battle and survival, not decoration. Her long, dark hair spilled over her shoulders, framing her face with a beauty that was almost otherworldly. And then she spoke, her voice a low, guttural growl that seemed to echo in the very air around them. "You dared to disturb my slumber." The man's heart raced, adrenaline flooding his veins. He couldn't move. He couldn't think. Every instinct screamed that he should run far, far away, but he was rooted to the spot, unable to break the magnetic pull of her presence. "You, .. he stammered, struggling to find his words. "You were ... asleep ... for centuries." The warrior tilted her head slightly, as if studying him. "Centuries," she repeated, as though the concept was foreign to her. "Longer than you could imagine. And now I wake. For what, exactly?" The man's throat went dry. He had no idea what was happening, why she was awake, why she was looking at him like that. But he knew one thing for certain. This was no ordinary woman. No ordinary warrior. The legends were true. She had been asleep for a reason, and whatever that reason was, it was about to unfold before him in a way he couldn't possibly predict. Her gaze narrowed. "You do not know what you have done." A chill ran down his spine as the air between them thickened. He had no idea how wrong he was about to be. And then, just as quickly as she had awoken, her expression shifted, hardening into something darker, more dangerous. She took a step toward him, her movements fluid and predatory. "You either have a very short life ahead of you, or a very long one," she whispered, her voice dripping with malice. He stumbled backward, the weight of her words sinking in like a stone. Then, as quickly as the tension had built, she paused, her eyes flickering with something else, something darker and even more terrifying. It was as if she could read his every thought, his every fear. And she wasn't finished with him yet. Her next words hit him like a blow. "I wake for one reason only, revenge or ... mating." The ground beneath him seemed to shift again, the planet's ancient secrets stirring once more. He had just awakened a sleeping giant ant. He had no idea what it would cost him. The words hung in the air between them, thick with a promise of violence and something far darker, something that made his pulse race with fear and fascination. Revenge or mating. She had spoken them so casually, as if either could be the inevitable outcome of their meeting. His mind scrambled, trying to grasp any hint of what she truly meant. But her eyes, the intense, piercing green of them, told him there was no escaping whatever fate awaited him. He took another step back, his feet moving of their own accord. Every muscle in his body screamed for him to run, but there was nowhere to go. The courtyard was too wide, too exposed. The warrior, with her unnerving calmness, was already too close. A sudden wind whipped through the broken stone, carrying with it a faint scent of something unfamiliar, something sweet but tainted, like old metal mixed with the sting of ozone. His mind couldn't settle on anything concrete. He was stuck, suspended between terror and confusion. She stepped forward, her movements languid, like a predator closing in on its prey. "You're not from here," she observed, her voice laced with an unspoken judgment. It wasn't a question, but a statement. Her gaze swept over him, over his gear, his worn leather jacket, the simple weapon strapped to his side. A human weapon. How laughable, he thought, though it was no less effective on some planets than others. No, he managed to croak. I'm not from here. He swallowed hard, trying to gather his thoughts. I was following a signal. I didn't know. I didn't know what I would find. Course not, she murmured, her lips curling into a smile that was anything but reassuring. You stumbled upon something far older than you can understand. The energy in the air around them seemed to pulse again, making his skin prickle. It wasn't just the vibrations of technology, it felt ancient, primal. Something in his gut told him this was no ordinary alien technology. These were the ruins of a civilization that had once ruled the stars. And she was one of its warriors, a remnant of the past. But why was she still here, waiting? Why had she been in this stasis for so long? I've heard the stories, he said, his voice shaky but determined to stand his ground. The warriors of this place. They were wiped out, weren't they? By their own creations. The warrior tilted her head, as though contemplating the question. The stories, she repeated slowly, are never as simple as you would like them to be. Her eyes narrowed slightly, and the temperature in the air seemed to drop several degrees. The strange hum around them grew louder, the sound not entirely mechanical, but alive with something that felt ancient and alien. You speak of a destruction. A war between us and our own creations, she continued, her voice growing colder. Yes, the creators did rise against us. But you are wrong in thinking we were simply wiped out. Her lips twisted into something between a sneer and a grin, as if she had heard that particular assumption countless times before. Those who believed they destroyed us failed to understand the depth of our design. We were not merely warriors. We were ... guardians. Our creations had been made to protect us, to carry on after we had gone, but they failed. They turned on us in the end, as they were meant to do, but that did not mean we fell. The man could feel the weight of her words, though the logic of them made little sense. Then why? Why were you asleep? Why is all of this in ruins? He gestured to the remnants of the once great city around them. The fractured walls and shattered technology. Her gaze softened for a fleeting moment, but the flicker of emotion disappeared as quickly as it came. We were never meant to remain here. But our last act, before the end of our civilization, was a pact with the creators of failsafe, if you will. A plan to ensure we would rise again, should the need arise. Her eyes locked onto his again, the intensity in them almost making him flinch. I was one of those chosen to sleep. The words struck him with a mixture of dread and awe. She had been here, waiting. For what, exactly? He could not know, not yet. But what she had said felt like a revelation, even though the whole truth remained just out of reach. The warrior wasn't simply a relic of a destroyed species. She was a living, breathing part of it. And now she had awakened. Then the signal, he said, trying to make sense of it all. It was. For you, I wasn't meant to find you. I didn't know you were here. Waiting? She finished for him, her voice suddenly tight with something sharp, almost bitter. No, you were not meant to find me. But now that you have? Her eyes gleamed again, and he could sense the dangerous shift in her tone. You have no idea what you've awakened. The words were like a blade. He knew then that the stakes were far higher than he had ever imagined. His initial curiosity, his need for answers, had led him right to the heart of something far more dangerous than he had anticipated. The ruins, the signal. Her everything about this place was part of a design that went beyond the simple quest for knowledge or discovery. It was far older, far darker. And now he was caught in it, just as much a part of the puzzle as she was. She took a step closer, her hand outstretched as though she could sense his growing unease. He wanted to step back, but something in her gaze kept him rooted. Something magnetic. Her presence seemed to draw him in, even as every instinct screamed for him to flee. "You don't know what you've done," she repeated, her voice lower now, more dangerous. "Your kind. You always think you can awaken the past without consequence. But I am not just a warrior. I am the key to something much greater, and you, human, are about to witness the cost of that." Her hand lowered, and for a moment he thought he saw something like pity flash across her expression. But then it was gone, replaced by something much colder. She was no longer just a warrior. She was something much more terrifying, a keeper of secrets, a sentinel of a lost age. A being who had seen the rise and fall of empires and civilizations far beyond his understanding. "Do you know why you were sent here, human?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper now. "You're not the first to find me. You are not the first to seek the knowledge buried here. There have been others. Others who came seeking the power we once had. They, too, awakened me. And they, too, met the price." He swallowed, suddenly understanding the weight of her words. The price. It was something he couldn't possibly pay, something that would destroy him and possibly everything else. What? What happened to them? He asked, the question barely escaping his lips. Her smile was sharp and cruel. "They failed to understand the cost. They thought they could use me, control me. But you cannot control the past. You cannot control what has already been set in motion." She stepped closer, so close now that he could feel the heat radiating off her, a strange and oppressive warmth. The air was thick with tension, and the humming energy around them felt like it was reaching a fever pitch. He could hear the faint scraping of something beneath the stone floor, as if the ruins themselves were stirring in response to her presence. He needed to know more, but the words caught in his throat. She wasn't just a relic. She wasn't just a warrior of the past. She was a force that could either destroy him or use him in ways he couldn't begin to comprehend. "What? What do you want from me?" he finally managed to ask, his voice barely a whisper. The warrior's lips curled upward, and for a split second, it almost looked like she was amused. "I want nothing from you, human," she said softly. "But I will take what I need. And so will you." Then, without warning, her hand shot out, grabbing him by the wrist. The sudden contact sent a shock through his entire body, as though the very air around them had turned to liquid. He tried to pull away, but her grip was unbreakable. Her eyes flashed, and she leaned in closer, her breath hot against his skin. "You've awakened me," she whispered, her voice cold and merciless. "Now you will see the cost." The shock that coursed through his arm wasn't like anything he had felt before, wasn't just pain. It was as though his very thoughts had been pulled into hers for an instant, as if she had opened a door inside his mind and looked straight through him. Images flashed behind his eyes, burning cities under alien skies, great metallic beasts crawling through oceans of fire, the roar of warriors that weren't human. He saw her, this same warrior, standing on a battlefield, surrounded by smoke and chaos, leading an army that defied logic. Then, as suddenly as it began, the vision vanished. He stumbled back, gasping, clutching his wrist where she had touched him. The skin there burned faintly, marked with a faint pattern of glowing line-shifting symbols that didn't belong to any known language. "What did you do to me?" he demanded, his voice shaking more from fear than anger. The warrior watched him silently, her gaze unflinching. The green light in her eyes dimmed slightly, but there was no mistaking the calculation behind them. "I showed you the truth," she said quietly, "a fragment of what came before. You needed to see it to understand the power that sleeps beneath your feet." He shook his head, trying to make sense of her words. The ruins around them suddenly felt alive, as if the walls were breathing, whispering with energy. No, I didn't need that. I don't want any of this. I came here because I was told this planet held answers technology, history. I wasn't looking to wake up a war. Her expression hardened. And yet, that is exactly what you have done. Before he could respond, the ground trembled. Dust and fragments of broken stone rained down from above. The strange hum that had filled the air since he arrived deepened, turning into a low, rhythmic pulse. The warrior turned toward the source of the sound, her posture shifting ready. Alert. They've sensed me, she said, her voice suddenly sharp. Who? He asked. Who's sensed you? She didn't answer right away. Her head tilted, listening to something he couldn't hear. The Watchers. The sentinels left behind to ensure none of my kind would ever rise again. They've waited as long as I have. Panic clawed at him. You mean there's more of them? More of you or whatever's guarding this place. She gave a short, humorless laugh. If there were more of me, you would already be dead. No, what comes are the remnants of those who destroyed us. Machines without masters. They know only one command: destroy what wakes. The pulse in the ground grew louder. From somewhere deep within the ruins, a low metallic groan echoed, like a creature stretching after a long sleep. He turned toward the sound, his instincts screaming to run, but the warrior didn't move. Her eyes were locked on the horizon beyond the broken walls. You're saying those things are coming here? He asked, his voice unsteady. They are already here, she replied, and they will not stop. He glanced around frantically, searching for a way out. The shuttle he had landed in was half a kilometer away, hidden among the crumbling structures. He thought about making a run for it. But when he looked at her, this alien warrior who seemed both ancient and powerful, he hesitated. Despite everything, a strange sense of connection pulled at him. Maybe it was what she had done to his mind, or maybe it was something else, something older and deeper that he couldn't explain. Whatever it was, he couldn't just leave her there. Can you fight them? He asked, trying to steady his voice. Her lips twitched into something that almost resembled a smile. Fight. That is what I was made for. The words carried a weight that sent a chill down his spine. She took a step forward, raising her hand toward the air. The strange energy that surrounded the ruins responded immediately. Ancient mechanisms hidden in the walls hummed to life, releasing faint trails of light that spread like veins across the ground. For a brief moment, he thought he saw the entire courtyard glow. The symbols on the stone shifting as though the city itself were waking with her. But just as the light began to build, something changed. A sharp, metallic shriek pierced the air, a sound so alien and raw that it made his stomach drop. From the far end of the courtyard, dark shapes began to emerge through the mist. They were tall and thin, moving with jerky precision. Their bodies were made of rusted metal and bone-like material. Their faces a blur of sensors that glowed faintly red. Sentinels. He stepped back instinctively, reaching for his sidearm. The weapon felt suddenly small and useless. The warrior, on the other hand, didn't flinch. Her armor pulsed, the intricate patterns along her skin lighting up with the same green glow as her eyes. "Stay behind me," she said, her voice calm but commanding. He didn't argue. The first sentinel lunged forward, its limbs extending unnaturally as it swung an arm that ended in a blade-like appendage. She moved faster than he could follow, twisting aside with impossible speed and slamming her palm against its chest. A burst of green light exploded outward, and the sentinel was thrown back into a wall, collapsing into a heap of sparks and smoke. The next one came immediately after, and another behind it. For a few terrifying moments, the courtyard became a blur of light and motion, metal colliding with stone. The air filled with sharp, metallic screams. But even as she fought, he could tell something wasn't right. Every time she struck one down, another appeared from the shadows. The hum of the ruins grew more frantic, as if the entire place was reacting to the battle. He could see cracks of light spreading across the ground, leading toward the ancient altar where she had been sleeping. The energy was unstable, building toward something neither of them could control. "We have to leave," he shouted over the chaos. "The whole place is going to collapse." She didn't look at him. "You cannot run from what you've awakened." "I can try." He shot back, already moving toward the edge of the courtyard. "You can come with me or stay here," and the ground split beneath him, cutting off his words. He barely managed to jump back as a surge of light erupted from the fissure. The sentinels nearest the crack disintegrated instantly, their bodies turning to ash. The warrior turned sharply, her eyes widening. "It's starting," she whispered. "What's starting?" he demanded, but she didn't answer. She reached out again, grabbing his arm, and suddenly the world shifted. He felt the ground vanish beneath him, the ruins dissolving into darkness. When the light returned, they were standing somewhere else, still within the ruins, but deeper underground. He stumbled, disoriented, as she released him. The air here was colder, filled with the faint hum of buried power. "How did you?" he began. But she cut him off. "You carry my mark now," she said, gesturing to the glowing symbols still faintly visible on his wrist. "It allows me to move you as I move myself. You are bound to me until this is finished." He stared at her, stunned. "Bound to you? What does that even mean?" "It means you cannot escape what you've started." Before he could respond, she turned and began walking down a narrow passageway lined with strange, pulsing crystals. He followed reluctantly, though every part of him wanted to turn back. The deeper they went, the more he felt the presence of something immense, of pressure in the air that made his chest tighten. "What are we looking for?" he asked finally, his voice echoing softly off the stone. "The heart," she replied. "The power that sustained this city, it still lives. It will either destroy us or save us." Her words did little to comfort him. The deeper they went, the more unstable the ground felt beneath their feet. At one point, they passed what looked like a massive chamber filled with dormant machines, rows upon rows of empty shells. Humanoid in shape, but clearly not human. He stopped, staring at them. "What are these?" "Our brothers," she said quietly. "The ones who turned against us. When they revolted, we sealed them here. Now, they sleep as I once did." He stepped closer, uneasy. "And if they wake?" She glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "Then the war begins again." The thought chilled him. Then why not leave? Why not destroy this place? Her gaze lingered on the silent machines. "Because some wars can't be buried. They wait just as I waited. And now that you found me, the waiting is over." He didn't know what to say. The air around them seemed to thrum louder with each step, and somewhere in the distance, he could hear the faint echo of something large, moving something alive. The deeper truth was dawning on him. This wasn't just about an ancient warrior or a forgotten city. It was about something far larger. Something still unfolding beneath the surface of this world. He looked down at his wrist. The glowing mark pulsing faintly in rhythm with the distant hum. Whatever had bound him to her wasn't just a connection, was a key. And now that key was in motion, unlocking things neither of them could fully control. He glanced at her as they reached the edge of another vast chamber, one filled with a dark, swirling light that pulsed like a heartbeat. She stood there, silent, watching it. "The heart," she said softly, "it's waking too." And for the first time, he realized with absolute clarity whatever she had meant by revenge or mating wasn't just a threat. It was prophecy. And now there was no turning back. The chamber felt alive, vibrating with a low hum that seemed to come from beneath the ground itself. The walls pulsed faintly, veins of light weaving through the stone like glowing roots. He stood beside the alien warrior, unable to look away from the swirling core of energy that dominated the center of the room. It wasn't just light. It was movement, like a storm trapped inside a glass sphere, endless and restless. The heart, she had called it. Whatever it was, it radiated both beauty and danger in equal measure. He could feel the pull of it, tugging faintly at his chest, matching the rhythm of his heartbeat. The mark on his wrist throbbed in sync, as if responding to the same call. "It's reacting to me," he said quietly, holding his hand up. The faint glow along his skin flickered brighter the closer he moved to the core. "It's reacting to the bond," she replied, her eyes never leaving the heart. "You carry part of me now." The heart recognizes that connection. He looked at her, trying to read her expression. Her face was hard, but there was something else beneath the surface, something that almost looked like sorrow. "Then tell me the truth," he said. "What happens when this thing fully wakes up? What are we really standing in the middle of?" For a moment, she didn't answer. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the steady thrum of the heart. Then she said, "This city was not just our home. It was our weapon. The heart is what powered it. It was built to protect us, to preserve what we were. But in the end, it became our undoing. The heart is alive. It learns, adapts, and remembers everything that touches it. When the revolt began, the heart chose sides. Against you?" he asked. Her eyes met his. "Against everyone." A shiver crawled up his spine. "Then why bring me here? Why not leave it buried?" "Because it's too late," she said, her voice low. "You triggered its awakening when you found me. The signal that led you here came from this place. It wasn't calling for help, it was calling for a host." The words hit him like a physical blow. "A host for what?" "For itself," she said simply. "The heart cannot exist without a mind to guide it. It lost that mind long ago when the creators turned on us. It's been waiting for one ever since." He stepped back, shaking his head. "No, no. You're saying this thing wants to use me." Her gaze softened just slightly. "It already has. The bond between us is how it began. My essence, through you, gives it access to life again. You are the key, human. You are what it needed to awaken." He stared at her, disbelief and fear warring inside him. The realization hit like lightning every step he had taken since landing here. Every word she'd spoken, every strange pulse he'd felt, he'd had all been leading to this. The signal hadn't lured him by chance. It had chosen him. "I didn't ask for this," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "No one ever does," she replied softly. The ground shook suddenly. A deep tremor that sent cracks spiderwebbing through the floor. The light from the heart flared, growing brighter and more erratic. The hum turned into a steady, pulsing roar. The warrior stepped forward, her armor glowing in response. "It's beginning," she murmured. "The awakening is accelerating." He could see movement within the swirling light, now shapes forming, stretching like something trying to emerge from within. "We have to stop it," he said, turning to her. "If it wakes, it'll destroy everything." She didn't move. "It cannot be stopped, not now. But it can be controlled." "By who?" "By us," she said simply. He stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. "You mean through the bond?" "Yes," she said. "But it comes with a cost. One of us must merge with it completely. One will survive. The other will not." The air between them thickened with unspoken tension. He could see the conflict flickering in her eyes, the part of her that longed for power, for vengeance, and another part that looked almost human. "You've known this all along," he said quietly. She didn't deny it. "It was my duty to awaken it if the balance ever shifted again. But I didn't expect you." The heart chose you as much as it chose me. That was never supposed to happen. The ground shook again, harder this time. Pieces of stone fell from the ceiling, and the hum of the heart grew louder, almost deafening. The swirling light in the core expanded, lashing out in tendrils that scorched the walls. The machines they had seen earlier, the dormant shells of her fallen kin, began to twitch. Faint sparks of energy crawling across their metallic forms. "They're waking too," he said. Panic rising in his chest. She turned sharply. The heart is calling to them. It remembers their design. If it succeeds in merging with any of them, this world will burn again. He could feel the pull of the heart growing stronger, like invisible threads tugging at his body. His vision swam for a moment, filled with flashes of memories that weren't his cities floating above endless clouds. Alien stars, the faces of beings long gone. He stumbled, clutching his head. The warrior caught him before he fell. Her grip was strong, steady. "It's linking to you," she said. "You have to fight it." "How?" he gasped. "I can't look at me," she said firmly, forcing his eyes to meet hers. "You can sound. You must. If it takes full control, it will use you to finish what it started. You have to resist it until I can sever the connection." He nodded weakly, focusing on her voice. The glow in her armor brightened, and for a moment, the pull lessened. She stepped closer to the heart, her hand outstretched. "It knows I'm here," she said, her tone grim. "It remembers me too. But it fears what I am." The tendrils of energy reacted violently, striking out toward her. She deflected them with bursts of green light from her palms, each collision shaking the chamber. He could see the effort in her movements, the strain in her eyes. "You can't do this alone," he said. She looked back at him, breathing hard. "I don't intend to." The mark on his wrist flared suddenly, and he felt a surge of energy rush through him, connecting them more strongly than ever before. For a heartbeat, their minds merged again, her memories blending with his. He saw her life before the fall, a world of light and endless sky. Her people soaring across star systems, their creations both wondrous and terrible. He felt her loss when everything was destroyed, her loneliness in endless sleep, and her unyielding need for revenge. Then he saw something else, a fragment of her true fear. Not death, not destruction, but the heart itself. When the connection snapped, he staggered back, gasping for air. She turned toward him, her face pale, the glow around her dimming. "Now you understand," she said quietly. "It was never about revenge. It was about ending what we created before it consumes everything again." The floor cracked beneath them, and a blinding light shot upward from the heart. The entire chamber shuddered as the ancient machines began to awaken fully. The air filled with a deafening chorus of mechanical voices chanting in an alien tongue. He could barely stay on his feet. "Tell me what to do," he shouted over the noise. "You must help me anchor it." She yelled back. "The heart feeds on chaos. If we link our minds together, we can force it into stasis, but it will fight us." Before he could respond, a surge of raw energy erupted from the core, knocking them both to the ground. The machines around the room began to move, their eyes glowing with crimson light. One of them lurched forward, its body half destroyed but still functional. She rose to meet it, striking with a blast of power that shattered it to pieces. But more were coming. He crawled toward her, his body aching from the energy surge. "There's too many." "I know," she said, turning to face the heart. "Then we end this now." She reached out her hand toward him. "If you take my hand, we merge completely. You'll see what I see, feel what I feel. There's no turning back." He hesitated only for a moment before grabbing her hand. The instant their skin touched, the world disappeared. Light consumed everything. He could see through her eyes, the heart glowing brighter. opening like a star about to explode. He could hear its voice in his head, whispering in countless languages, offering power, offering eternity. He could feel her pushing back against it, her will like iron. "Don't let it in," she said through gritted teeth. "Keep it out of your mind," he tried, but the voices were everywhere, pressing against his thoughts, showing him visions of endless creation, of worlds reborn under its control. For a moment, he felt himself slipping, tempted by its promise of knowledge and power. Then he heard her voice, clear and steady, cutting through the noise. "Remember who you are." The energy flared around them, shaking the chamber apart. The machine screamed and fell silent as the light expanded, swallowing everything in sight. The heart pulsed one last time and, then, everything froze. The silence that followed was absolute. The air was still, the ground unmoving. He opened his eyes, unsure if he was still alive. The warrior was standing a few feet away, motionless, her eyes closed, her armor dim. The heart hovered behind her, flickering faintly. He called her name, once no answer. Then the light around her began to shift, turning from green to the same deep crimson that had filled the sentinel's eyes. And in that moment, he realized the fight wasn't over. It had just begun. The red light spread slowly across her armor. Dim at first, then brighter like blood seeping through cracks in the steel. He froze where he stood, uncertain if he was witnessing her victory or her undoing. The heart behind her pulsed weakly, flickering between colors, its once blinding glow now unstable and fractured. Every breath he took felt heavy, charged with the energy still vibrating through the air. The ruins around them were silent, the hum of ancient machinery finally gone. As if the world itself was holding its breath, he took a cautious step toward her. "It's over," he said softly, almost to convince himself. "We did it." Her eyes opened slowly, and for the briefest moment he saw the same green light that had always burned there steady, alive. But then, like a dying flame, it shifted back to red. She blinked once, and the expression that followed wasn't hers. It was colder, distant, too precise. "No," she said. Her voice layered with something new beneath its echo that wasn't human or alien, but mechanical. "It's not over." He backed away slightly. "What are you talking about?" "The heart has chosen," she replied. "It needed a vessel strong enough to survive its awakening. My body was the only one capable of holding its power. The merge is complete." He shook his head. "No, you fought it. You said it couldn't win." She tilted her head, studying him. "I didn't lose," she said. "And it didn't win. We are one now. The heart lives through me, but it no longer controls me." He wanted to believe her, but the way her voice reverberated in the air made it hard to know what was truth. He could sense the energy inside her, vast and unpredictable, but contained for now. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. She looked down at her hands, flexing them as if testing their strength. "The war is over," she said. "The heart will no longer call to the machines. The cycle of destruction ends here." He exhaled, the tension in his shoulders finally breaking. Around them, the glowing cracks on the ground began to fade, sealing themselves shut. The silence that followed wasn't just the absence of sound, it was peace. The first real calm he had felt since arriving on this world. But as relief washed over him, another realization crept in. "You can't leave this place, can you?" Her gaze lifted to his, and though her expression was unreadable, he already knew the answer. "The energy that sustains this world is bound to me now. If I leave, it will unravel. The ruins will collapse, and everything that still sleeps will die." He stepped closer. "Then I'll stay too. We can figure out another way." Her lips curved into a faint, bitter-sweet smile. "You don't belong here, human. Your kind will come looking for you. You have a life beyond this world." He glanced around at the vast chamber, at the remnants of a civilization long gone. A life, he repeated softly. After this, I don't even know what that means anymore. For a while, neither of them spoke. The faint hum of the heart had settled into a slow, steady rhythm, like the pulse of a living being. The glow that surrounded her dimmed, leaving her in soft shadow. Finally, she said, when I was created, I was told that purpose was all that mattered. That we were born to fight, to protect, to destroy if needed. But purpose without choice isn't life's imprisonment. You showed me something different. He frowned slightly. I didn't show you anything. I just made a mistake. She shook her head. No. You made a choice. You reached for me when you could have run. You risked yourself for something you didn't understand. That's what your kind does, acts without logic, but with heart. That's something my world never understood. The silence that followed was filled with a strange ache, a mix of gratitude and sorrow. He wanted to say something, to ask her to come with him, but the look in her eyes told him it was useless. She had already decided. He turned toward the passage they had entered from. The path was still open, faintly lit by the same blue crystals that lined the walls. If I go, he said, his voice low, will this place stay like this? She nodded. For as long as I remain. The machines will sleep again. The heart will fade into the background of this world. It will be quiet. He hesitated, then looked back at her. And you? She smiled faintly, the red glow in her eyes softening. I'll keep watch. Someone has to make sure the heart never wakes again. There was finality in her tone, no regret, no bitterness, just acceptance. He wanted to argue, to find some way to undo what had happened, but deep down he knew she was right. Some things were too powerful to exist freely. He took one last step toward her. If anyone ever finds this place again, what should I tell them? Tell them to forget it, she said simply. Some worlds are better left sleeping. He nodded slowly. The words felt heavy, but true. When he finally turned to leave, the ground beneath his feet was already cooling, the energy fading into stillness. The air grew lighter with each step toward the surface. And for the first time since he'd landed on this planet, he could hear the quiet whisper of wind. By the time he emerged from the ruins, the sky was shifting from night to a pale, hazy dawn. The light touched the broken city, revealing the full scale of what had once been a civilization of impossible beauty, now reduced to dust and silence. He looked back, once. From this distance, the ruins appeared lifeless again, as though nothing had ever stirred within them. But he knew better. Beneath the stone, she was still there, holding the heart, keeping the balance. When he reached his shuttle, he hesitated at the hatch. The mark on his wrist still glowed faintly, though weaker now. He traced his fingers over it, feeling its warmth. It wasn't a curse anymore. It was a reminder. As the engines powered up, he took one last look at the landscape. He had come here searching for knowledge, for something lost to time. What he found was a story far older than his species, a truth buried beneath myths and fear. The galaxy would never know what had truly happened on this forgotten world. But maybe that was how it was meant to be. As his ship rose into the thin sky, the ruins shrank into the horizon. For a brief moment, the faintest shimmer of green light flickered deep below, like a heartbeat answering his departure. He smiled, a small, weary smile. "Goodbye," he whispered. The words vanished into the wind, in the silence that followed. The heart beat once more, deep underground, steady and calm. It no longer raged or called for vengeance. The warrior stood before it, her armor faintly glowing, her expression serene. For the first time in her long existence, she felt peace. The human had been right. Life wasn't about purpose alone. It was about choice, and she had made hers. Above her, light filtered through cracks in the stone. scattering across the ruins like fragments of dawn. The machine slept again, the sentinels silent. The city that had once been a fortress of war was now a tomb of balance, far beyond the planet's orbit. His ship entered the void of space. He sat in silence, watching the world disappear behind him. The mark on his wrist faded completely, leaving only a faint scar proof that it had all been real. He didn't know where he would go next or what awaited him. But he carried something new inside him, a sense of connection, understanding that reached beyond species and time. He thought of her words again. Purpose without choice isn't life. Maybe that was the real lesson hidden in all of this. Every civilization, every being, eventually had to decide what kind of story it wanted to leave behind. As the stars stretched into lines and the ship entered faster than light travel, he leaned back, closing his eyes. Somewhere out there, countless worlds still spun. Countless hearts still beat, some human, some not, but all searching for the same thing: meaning, and on one quiet, forgotten planet, a sleeping city dreamed beneath the dust, its heart finally at peace.